Nick, break it down. How much of the Sixers' problems this year were Brett Brown's fault?
Oh, I don't think he was the primary culprit, but this is the easiest move for them to make. And, by the way, I think it's probably a necessary move. We talk about in sports a lot. Sometimes there are the right coaches to get you from A to B, but not the right coach to get you from B to C. I think Brett Brown did a great job dealing with the process, the losing, the roster turnover, and I think he should be applauded for that. But he's had multiple chances in playoff series against excellent coaches to show that he can scheme with the best of them, and he can't. So I think for the Sixers to move on to the next step, moving on from Brett Brown was a necessary part of it, Brandon. But that does not fix things for them. That is one part of it, but it doesn't fix the $148 million you owe Tobias Harris. It doesn't fix the $81 million you owe Al Horford. It doesn't fix that Ben Simmons won't shoot, and it doesn't fix that Joel Embiid still seems exhausted by the second quarter of some of these playoff games. Those are bigger structural issues that whomever walks into that job, Brandon, they're going to have to deal with.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much here. I mean, we could talk about management and brand. We could talk about, a changing of coaches, which is never easy because now you got the ego that comes into play when you're dealing with professional athletes and superstars who make more money than you. And then we got the guys in the locker room and on the court. So do we start there? And to me, that's where I would like to start. When you look at Embiid, his body language, it just doesn't show that he's the guy. When you look at the Golden State Warriors, back in the day, you look at the Celtics, you look at the Spurs, you look at the Heat, there was always a guy that you can point at and say, that is the man. And I just don't see that in Embiid. I don't see that in Ben Simmons. So I would like to start there. If I'm Elton Brand, I'm saying this. Look, guys, I gave you guys opportunity. I know I hit on some guys and I missed on some guys. There's been a lot of turnover on the roster outside of our big two. But I gave you exactly what you needed in Jimmy Butler. Like, how do you let this guy leave? That's exactly what you needed, was a guy that can take control of the locker room, on the court, push people to be better. So I don't know, what's going on in that locker room, but that's where I would start.
Yeah, this is not sort of a baseball through a glass window where the angry dad comes out of the house, says, who threw the baseball? And everybody points at Brett Brown. It's like, it's 100% Brett Brown's fault. There's a lot of fault to go around here. And, Nick, I'll throw it to you. I thought when Josh Richardson, who came from the Heat, says there's a lack of accountability, that's one thing that, all right, you're doomed. And the second thing was Brett Brown himself, when earlier in the year he said, all I want to do is have Ben shoot 1 3 a game. That's all I'm asking. Tell his agent or tell his friends. Have him shoot 1 3.
He didn't say it to Ben.
And Ben Simmons is like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm like, well, this guy doesn't have real control over the team, because we talked about it earlier in a second. If someone like Popovich did it, Ben Simmons would be out there looking like Gilbert Arenas.
Well, you hope. I mean, at some point, there's got to be accountability on the players. Like, I don't blame Tobias Harris for being Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris is a 17 to 21 point per game guy, depending on what team he's playing for. They offered him 5 years, $180 million. Of course, he took it. Al Horford, at this point in his career, is a lesser version of peak Al Horford. Everyone knew it. The Sixers, and I thought Zach Lowe pointed this out brilliantly, the Sixers signed Al Horford for 2 reasons. One, they thought he matched up well with Giannis. 2, they thought Embiid matched up poorly against Al Horford. So it's like, well, now Embiid won't have to go up against him, and when we play the Bucks, we'll have someone to guard Giannis. The problem is, Al Horford was such a bad fit on the team, you never even got to play the damn Bucks. So, that signing doesn't make sense. But Embiid and Simmons, the number 1 pick of the draft in Simmons, and Embiid, a guy who would have gone number 1 if you weren't concerned about his foot injuries coming out of Kansas, those guys have to mature professionally. Joel Embiid, it's the body language, Brandon, but it's also the fact that his rookie season, they were worried about his diet. There's a funny anecdote about how he just fell in love with Shirley Temples and drank them by the dozen.
Virgin Shirley Temples.
6 years ago. He's still overweight. Like, he still is not in shape. And Ben, the knock on Ben from his first moment in the league was a refusal to shoot. And he still refuses to shoot. Brandon, I don't put that on the coach. At some point, the athlete has to take it upon themselves to improve their weaknesses.
Yeah, I don't know if it's me because I'm a football guy, but it just seems like in basketball, you know, it's more ownership. More ownership goes to the player. In basketball, one guy, and we've seen this in the past with LeBron James and now with Luka, one guy can dominate a game, can change the entire game for a season. So I just don't understand why Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid just doesn't take things to a whole nother level. And to your point about not shooting a three, well, this is modern basketball. If you can't shoot, you can't play. So, I just think that, Joel and Ben really need to look themselves in the mirror and get it together. Well, and if I'm Pop, I'm more attracted to this team than the Nets. Wilds.
Oh,
I mean,
what say you, Wilds?
Yeah, I don't think he goes there. I think it's Brooklyn or bust just because of the Sean Marks connection, Nick.
You say it, Wilds.
Well, and I'm just curious. I'm curious what this team's going to look like. Because if Elton Brand thinks we replace Brett Brown and run it back with this team and the results are going to be greatly different, then we're going to be having this exact conversation after next postseason. And listen, Tobias is nearly untradeable because of the contract. Al Horford is nearly untradeable. I personally wouldn't move Embiid because he's such a unique player as far as matchups against other guys. I am calling up Portland and saying, Ben Simmons for CJ, what do you think? Like, Ben's the better player, but CJ's a better fit.
They wouldn't
I'm maybe calling up Chicago. Who's the they there, Wilds?
Did you see his body language? Nick, you're so focused on the talent.
For CJ for Ben. But keep going. If you
think
package
I'm
Al
too
Horford
focused
along
on the
No, if you're taking Ben and a big contract and sending them.
This is unbelievable. You guys are still focused on the talent. Stop it. I keep telling you guys this. It's only day 2 for me. Talent only takes you so far. Yes, Joel Embiid has a skill set of a Shaquille O'Neal, but do you see his body language? That's not the mentality that you want in your locker room and leading your organization. So, no, you keep Ben, if anybody, and get rid of Joel, the bad body language guy.
Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from First Things First, or go watch a few segments from our other shows on FS1.